Something you understand as you grow up as a man is that there is a stark difference between how men and women behave regarding risk-taking and rules. Men often stray outside the boundaries of what is considered acceptable, the status quo, in order to set new boundaries, to innovate. And women will then, when it's safe, rush into that new cultural space and become the most stringent enforcer of the rules. So men set new boundaries and women enforce the rules. And sometimes those rules are used as a method of covert competition between women for resources, for status among women, or for the attention of men. And no better example is there than this piece in the Telegraph, where the headline is, "The far right has got a new weapon, glamorous young women." Now, before we get into the substance of the text, let's look at the author. And I don't wish to be mean, because she might well be a very nice person, though given the people that she has spoken to in this article to pour scorn on said young women, like Ada, Saskia, and Ava Vladingerbrook, I have reason to doubt this. This is the author, Leaf Arbuthnot. Now, she has written previous articles that seem innocuous. I mean, she seems to have written quite a lot about Barry Weiss and interviewed her a few times, but otherwise she's just your average Telegraph writer who writes about social issues and literature. However, I happen to think that this might not be about her political opinions, and it might be about the fact that she feels a bit mogged. Because if you look at the difference between the women that she's profiling and an article she's written about herself, about her ginger hair and how it's made her be fetishized, and I'm sorry, I can't really describe her to you audio listeners other than saying this is the most Scottish woman alive. I seem to think the disparity might have fueled the article more than the supposedly far-right statements of Ada, Saskia, and Ava. Basically, there is an insight that all politics is kind of a biological phenomena, that your genetic luck in life influences whether you're more egalitarian or more competitive, hierarchical, elitist. And I have to say, at the moment, as the first paragraph betrays, I think we shouldn't underestimate how much of the seething hatred directed at the nativist, nationalist right these days is because we're just mogging them. We're on peptides, we're on retatrutide, we're mewing, we are aura farming, we are making hype edits using AI, we are leveling up. I mean, okay, that's enough of that. That's enough gesturing before all of you. You don't deserve it. I should start charging for this stuff. Become a YouTube member for the shirtless content behind the paywall. Anyway, my point is made for me because Leaf writes in the first paragraph, "Not so long ago, the stock image of someone from the far right was easily summoned. They'd be male, obviously, and very probably bald, with steel-toe boots and questionable tattoos." She's describing Gammonzilla. Times, however, have moved on. This week, it was reported that the government had banned 7 far-right agitators, I'm making scare quotes for those listening, from entering the country to attend a Tommy Robinson rally on Saturday. 3 are strikingly telegenic young women. Among the verboten ones is Ada Luch, an impeccably coiffed 26-year-old Catalan activist. She's a Spanish social media influencer. I met her out in Hungary a couple of months ago. Nice girl, actually. And she has defended the Franco regime, very based, he was the good guy, and had told the most recent Unite the Kingdom rally last September that Western democracies have been completely invaded. I mean, entirely true. Isn't Spain poised to grant amnesty to a few 100,000 African and Middle Eastern illegal migrants right about now? Isn't Spain also like the capital of trans surgeries because they expedite mastectomies with very little questions asked? Spain just seems to be a total basket case. It's only the second worst period in Spanish history until after those gates were opened. I'm gonna have my Jewish friends texting me for that joke, I swear, but oh well. Nevertheless, this seems very sensible. And, okay, quick pause. I do not like Keir Starmer one bit. And I think it's very conspicuous that he finds his ability to enforce the borders only when his political enemies are coming to town warning about the fact that the borders aren't being enforced. Though, despite, barring Dominic Charczynski, nice guy, actual member of Polish Parliament from coming into the country. I think they banned a Belgian MP or MEP as well from coming in. I totally agree with barring Valentina Gomez, because she's just a grifter and a slot merchant, and I'm sick to death of hearing mouthy foreigners say why the British have no fight and you're gonna become an Islamic country. And don't be wrong, you can't find someone more opposed to Islam than me. Perhaps, well, there's very few, perhaps. But I don't think America's demographics are all that great either, and I think that's partially because of your ethnic group, Miss Gomez. And so I demand a higher quality of nativist patriot. It's not that we can't have foreign friends warning us about what's to come, but, there's kind of a mess in your own backyard and you're not doing much about it. Anyway, Ava's been blocked from coming to the UK because apparently it's not conducive to the public good by the same government that works day and night to bring in Egyptian terror sympathiser Aloud El Fattah into our country and won't deport him. Yet again, they only enforce the border against pretty blonde women. I'm personally in favour of an Ali G policy, only the fit ones come in. I think I can hear my wife yelling at me through the walls. Anyway, Gomez, of course, has been banned. Ava has been banned. I wonder why the feminist harpies and resident Goomba Shabana Mahmood might have felt a little bit threatened by the presence of Ava Vladingerbrook in their country. You couldn't possibly have this dark shield maiden come in and warn you that whites are becoming a global minority, that ethnicity is something to do with our heritage, our culture and identity, and it's something worth preserving, and that immigration conspicuously leads to a preventable number of murders, rapes, costs and crimes inflicted upon the host population who never wanted it. You could never have anyone say that and also look relatively pretty. But the reason all of these characters are being profiled, including Saskia as well, Saskia was asked about why she wasn't even going to the rally for this piece, and she's posted about it before. The reason they're profiling these women is because they're afraid of nativist politics becoming upwardly mobile, aspirational, and in vogue in feminine circles at the exact time that young white women have been ideologically poisoned to vote against their own safety, their own interests, have been told to treat violent minorities, men from the third world who are most likely to assault them, like they are infants in need, and to cheerlead for the Camp of the Saints party, the Greens, at much higher rates than their white male counterparts are engaging in the democratic process. And they're afraid that women will instead realise it's actually not in my interest to allow men in dresses to invade my changing rooms, my toilets, my sports teams. It's actually not in my interest to denigrate the white men of my nation that I might like to marry and have children with someday. Meanwhile, import their substitutes who are much more violent, would put me in a bin bag at best, and treat me like a disposable sex slave and leave me dead on a beach for my body to be uncovered by the authorities at worst. And they're petrified because all left-wing politics, and I'm stealing this insight from Dave Green, whose streams you must watch, all left-wing politics is an exercise in gaining power. And so, how do you gain power as a left-wing politician? Well, single women vote left, married women have something to conserve that is within the remit of their own households, they have rules to enforce for their own children, they like the continuity of civilization, they like feeling safe, they like feeling protected by the men in their lives, and a state which reflects that patrician concern, and so they don't vote for the left. And so you need to keep women single, resentful, and anxious. And how do you increase that anxiety? Import loads of men that put them under threat, so that they then demand further government protections, not just censorship to keep people safe, as if they are toddlers on the precipice of a tantrum, and so everyone must be sensitive around them, but also more surveillance, more heavy-handed policing against the white male population that is scapegoated for the crimes of the imported minorities, because that white male population will make wives and mothers out of the single female voting demographic who the state would like to be dependent on them so they can continue to increase their power. They basically hate self-sustaining happy families. And so the greatest act of rebellion in this day and age is to secure a future for yourself, your family, your people, and to have a happy family, to go to church, to have kids, to love one another. That's the greatest act of rebellion that you can engage in. And when that becomes political, because believe me, the feminists knew correctly, the personal is political, and they just wanted you to be personally miserable so that your politics becomes weaponized resentment against the men that might not make you miserable, because misery loves company. The moment you recognize the personal is political, the moment you fix your personal life, the moment you become conscious about the fact the state wants you fat, single, miserable, and hating your own identity and your own nation, the moment that you invert that, you become happy, you have a family, you reconnect with your traditions, and you also become a shining example of how your personal life and your political beliefs make you happy compared to your miserable female friends and counterparts, then the state hits the roof, they are afraid, and the regime comes tumbling down. And at scale, they can't allow that to happen. So instead, they decide to deploy establishment-aligned press outlets, increasingly like the Telegraph, which has just been bought out by some German progressive. They deploy them to character assassinate pretty young women who are concerned about the fate of their nation. Oh, and by the way, people are going to be mentioning the cancellation of Saskia from a Restore Britain event. I posted a few posts on X when Restore were taking their time to respond to that particular scandal. Basically, we live in an occupied country. The state is like the Soviet Union. We have to be careful with our rhetoric. I have to choose my words very carefully. I'm constantly dancing around landmines, and I think I make a good go of it. But even I have slipped up from time to time, I'm sure. Saskia posted something that some Jobsworth at the Electoral Commission or some malign actor looking to weaponize equalities legislation against Restore Britain, a newly established political party that's made enemies of the entire establishment, and no doubt is going to be subject to intelligence infiltration efforts. They could basically use that as the excuse to use lawfare against the party. And so someone, out of an abundance of caution, said, sorry, not this time. Saskia is in no way barred from the party. We're not in the business of cancelling one another. Oh, and by the way, remigration is not banned at Restore Britain. Charlie Downs, Harrison Pitt, and myself use the phrase all the time. Remigration is Restore Britain policy. It is not a banned word. I think it's the only party for whom remigration is a policy. I mean, Harrison recently sat down with the man who invented the term remigration, and that is Martin Sellner, who supports Restore Britain. So does Elon Musk, by the way, who uses the term Restore Britain. So we have only the best supporters, ladies and gentlemen, and I think that includes Saskia. And I also, if I remember correctly, Ava Vladingerbrook has congratulated Rupert on his launch video before. So I think we have the best men and the best women in our corner. What more could you want? Instead, because this is the case, and because having competent, attractive young men and women who are interested in starting families and restoring their nation represent this style of politics and this lifestyle as brand ambassadors, as living examples of the virtue of this form of politics, but because that will attract people to the cause, we're going to be subject to hit pieces. I assume I haven't had one written up about me yet, because people just can't find the words for how attractive they find the curvature of my ears or other such unique features. My wife loves them. She says my love handles are just higher up. They also profile Based in Bougie, who, I mean, no slight against her. I don't really know her, but I don't think she really fits here because she's hardly the far right. She spends quite a lot of her output complaining about ethno-nationalism and demanding that everyone recognise anyone who is patriotic as indistinguishably British as people with English, Scottish, Welsh and Irish heritage. I would simply say that I wouldn't impose myself on the people of the Congo and demand that you recognise me as Congolese if I happen to love Congolese culture. I don't know what that is. I'm sure there's something rich there that isn't just, having child soldiers. Sorry, that is a joke. I have to make the jokes. I'm sorry. I know I'm going to get crashed out at that. But I'm sure we can be friends. Nevertheless, I just don't think she really fits in this article when the rest of the women are, being profiled as, they're accusing them of being like white nationalists, and then they put Based and Bougie in there, who admittedly has some amusing TikToks about the fact that we gave Africa the railways and architecture and running water and the wheel, and now just look at the roads in South Africa. They're digging up the tarmac for, I don't know, fun, presumably. Nevertheless, the last thing I want to point out here is the resentful mutants that they call upon to try to smear these young women and the broader movements they're associated with. Alex McKinnon, researcher at the anti-fascist organisation Hope Not Hate. So, again, if you didn't think this piece was a form of covert competition or strangling a rival way for women to gain social capital and to attract men in the crib, if you didn't think this was about the author, why would The Telegraph, the ostensibly right-wing paper of record in the country, go running to Hope Not Hate to call these women mean names? Like, why would they call on the Beta Male Brigade, the literal communists who employ men who admitted to attacking Asian women with hammers before and lionize the Soviet Union? Why would you draw on them as a credible source on what is and isn't politically acceptable, unless you just wanted to smear these women's good name? And this guy, by the way, he keeps writing about Restore Britain. He spoke to just the disreputable outlet Byline Times, who once tried to write a hit piece on me and it ended up being an accidental endorsement. I mean, the most insulting thing in it was that they called me a journalist. Ugh. Anyway, he told the Byline Times before, Rupert Lowe is by far the most extreme MP in recent memory, and far-right figures, including open fascists and neo-Nazis, are vocally supporting his party. Remember, they used the word fascist and Nazi to mean everything. They used it to smear people that were calling out the grooming gangs for a very long time. For God's sake, they've called Nigel Farage a Nazi, and he is just a liberal, right? So, means nothing anymore. I don't care what you say, and you don't even think communism is wrong because you have members of the Communist Party like Matthew Collins in your party. You have co-authored research with him in the recent State of Hate report. And so if you think anyone to the right of communism is a Nazi, the word Nazi means nothing, and it's actually just a way to smuggle communism in despite its unpopularity. And I can just tell from this sort of wretched rhetoric, this sort of pleading to cancel people who are grateful for inheriting a great civilization, who happen to find their own people quite attractive, who are aspirational, who want to be surrounded in a civilization by people who think and look and love like them. I think just the fact that he finds that so disgusting, I mean, we don't even need to see a photo of him to see that this is just a wretched individual, right? And so the point of this short video is to say, which side would you rather be on? Would you rather be on the side that's jumping up and down and tearing itself in half like Rumpelstiltskin because they find it unconscionable that young, attractive, well-educated, aspirational people are interested in their heritage, want to save their country, want to have families, want a wholesome life that isn't wholly dependent on the government, and aren't engaged in the project of civilizational erasure and guilt over the past, which not only, I mean, they shouldn't feel any guilt for the acts of their ancestors, but actually, you know, we're a great civilization and we were the heroes of history, thank you very much. Would you rather be on that side, or would you rather be on the side that has, I mean, attractive men and, increasingly, attractive young women who are having families, raising them together, falling in love, and finding some way to get through this difficult veil of tears that we call life without constantly worrying about what strangers say about them on the internet and whether or not they have the approval of resentful, wretched revolutionaries that, I mean, just don't have anyone around to give them a hug, I guess. Cortisol well and truly spiked.